So welcome back to Talking Talent for the people that already have been here before, and welcome for everybody that's new to Talking Talent as well. For the first time in the Talking Talent history, we're facing some technical difficulties, which means that two of our speakers could not connect to the webinar and come on stage. But we're working on it, and after the introduction, they will be sure to join the panel. But I didn't want to start too late, so that's why we're kicking off the webinar. So yeah, once more, welcome and thank you all for joining. As I said, some people might know the format, but let me re-explain what Talking Talent is about. Because we started this event series out of the work that we're doing as Accelerate in the startups that we work at. And we see many different topics that align, or topics happening in one startup that also happens in other startups. So what we do with Talking Talent is actually getting speakers on stage that work on solving certain challenges or work on solving certain topics in their company, and let them having this discussion with each other, so they share their knowledge, and it will make you more wise on one of the topics, but also shows different perspectives. And tonight we're talking about the rise of female leadership within fintech, which is something really close to the heart of everybody that is in the panel tonight. They're all working in fintech. They're not all females because, as Jessica pointed out so nicely, she said that we should get a male speaker in this discussion as well, in order to bring sort of a diverse opinion here. So I see that Martin joined well. Welcome, Martin. Now we just need to make it work for Jessica. She's restarting her laptop. Then before I dive into the topic and let the speakers actually speak, I would love to tell you a bit more about Accelerate, the company behind Talking Talent. So as you can see, this is our team. We are working as a recruitment startup in several clients. And those clients are actually started speaking tonight as well. And we are hiring in the format of an embedded model, where one of our talent partners becomes part of their team and hires great talent for them. We offer that as an in-house service. We also offer executive hiring and employer branding. With being on site or in the systems of our clients, we can get a great talent on board for them, and also really help them to optimize their recruiting processes, to set up their employer branding, or to get their executives on board. So in case if you're looking for some recruitment support, please contact myself afterwards. And some of the speakers tonight are also the companies from the companies that we already worked with or worked with in the past. So feel free to ask them for a reference. Then I don't want to go too long into talking, but I would love to let the speakers introduce themselves and give us more introduction on where they're coming from. As Jessica's not on stage yet, I wanted to start with Anna from CPO of Vantik. Could you give a short introduction of yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna, and I'm currently working for Vantik. We are actually providing kind of a financial solution in a more digital way for any kind of retirement planning. This is what I'm currently heavily working on. In the past, I founded two companies by myself, one in the gaming area and one in a B2B marketplace area. Sold both. The one first after 4 years, the second one after already 1 year. And then afterwards I moved from Cologne to Berlin to join Vantik. That's me. Thanks.
Nice. Thank you so much, Anna. And then Delia, do you want to go next?
Sure. So hi everyone, I'm Delia. I'm managing director at solarisBank. solarisBank is basically, by now the biggest banking as a service provider in Germany for fintechs, digital companies, and basically every company who wants to include financial services into their business model. At solarisBank, we have 4 business units that basically focus on specific products, and I'm leading the business unit that is concerned with everything around KYC, so know your customer processes. That means basically customer onboarding, identifications, and so on and so forth. I'm at solarisBank since 4 years now. Before that, always been in fintech or financial services. So really looking forward also to talking today a bit more about the industry specifics, let's say.
Thank you for the introduction, and congrats on the recent funding. I think is in place here as well. Antonia, you want to go next?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Thank you for having us, Isabel. So yeah, I'm Antonia. I've been in Berlin for 2 years now, working at Moonfare. Moonfare is a platform that allows private individuals to invest and access private equity funds, so at lower minimums and lower fees. There, I'm in charge of overseeing our business development and partnerships effort, especially with private banks. Before that, I was based in London. I spent 8 years there, most of it with private equity and other financial institutions, but very happy to be in Berlin now and yeah, to be on this panel with you all.
Thank you so much. Welcome. Martin, you want to give a short intro about yourself as well?
Sure. Hello, everybody. As Anna, I myself as well am a serial entrepreneur. So I founded a couple of companies and a foundation in Argentina. This included my own strategy consultancy here in Berlin. I founded a company for the Labor Ministry of Saudi Arabia once, a long time ago. I founded a subsidiary for McKinsey here in Germany, and my recent position was with N26 as CEO, and I had the company to scale to a unicorn stage. I always tried to attach myself to causes beyond profit. So for example, at N26, obviously we wanted to make money as well and have a great valuation, but we as well wanted to give more accessibility to the financial system and drive innovation, along the big, bit against the big incumbents as well. Happy to be here. And maybe fitting to the topic, I'm currently in a sabbatical, so I'm not long at N26. Taking a bit more care of my family and restart in autumn in a yet to be fine startup here in Berlin.
Thank you so much, Martin. Nice intro. Then we can actually dive already right into the questions. Again, as Jessica wrote also on the chat here on the right, she is having some troubles with the laptop at the moment, but she will join us halfway through for sure. So what kind of gender-specific challenges do you face in your role, and what kind of consequences does that have? I think we talked about this before, Antonia. Do you want to kick off with your view on this?
Yeah, sure, happy to. Well, look, I mean, I want to start by saying that in this day and age, where it's becoming increasingly rare, in my opinion, to come across very blatant and obvious sexist behavior, especially in the corporate environment. But that doesn't mean that it's not there, right? It's just become more subdued. So, nobody will openly say that a woman will be paid less in a role because she's a woman, but effectively the gender pay gap is a very real thing. So I think what I'm saying is that it makes it difficult to identify situations where you might be, disadvantaged or at a disadvantage because of your gender. So it's lots of little anecdotes that make it a little bit tricky to navigate. But essentially, for me, I've kind of bucketed it into 3 categories. And the first one is unconscious bias. The second one is sort of more around ordinary sexism, that can lead, to non-inclusive behavior. And the third is more representation. So just to give some examples so that, I'm sure it will speak to a lot of people. So anything around unconscious bias, so related to hiring, for example, thinking that certain types of people, including on a gender basis, are more fit for certain roles. Bias around promotion, I don't know, a woman who's in her mid-30s, maybe she'll be pregnant soon. Do we really want to promote her if she's going to be out for a year or more? Or bias around also acceptable behaviors, characteristics, expectations to be more soft-spoken, to be assertive, but not too much. So lots of small things that were not even, everybody does it. I'm not saying this is just a male thing. It's completely unconscious basically. On the second point, sort of more like what I call ordinary sexism is things like, using he or him as a default when you're referring to a client or a potential candidate for a role. It's using, making jokes around being more successful in certain roles because of gender. It's using girls when you talk about women as opposed to women. So lots of small things like that are never ill-intended, but they add up and tend to isolate the people who are not, not included, essentially. And then just to wrap it up on the representation point, I think this is an interesting one, because when you don't see diverse profiles making it to the top level of any company, it's very challenging for women that are in more junior roles to actually project themselves, to see that, you know, they could get there too. They have what it takes, and there's a spot for them there. So at the end of the day, adding all these three things, these three buckets up, it can lead to a pretty discriminatory work environment in a very subdued way. That's been my experience anyway, working with financial services for a long time.
I'm happy to maybe go on, because I think all of what you just said was completely valid, and I also see that. I think for me, probably the most dangerous one is the first one, the unconscious bias, because I also see this a lot, and this is just so hard to fight. Like for your point 2 and point 3, hey Jessica.
Hi everyone.
You can make people aware, basically, and you can do something very proactively about it. For the unconscious bias, I think this is really hard for me personally.
I think that you're totally right. Also, coming from a recruitment standpoint, it's a big thing that's happening in the recruitment process, right? Before we go too much into solution or how overcoming this as well, I want to ask for the other speakers as well. Is there sort of anything to add to Antonia's broad sort of scope that she also already mentioned here? Is there something we're overseeing that is also a gender-specific problem that we're facing in our role? Martin, do you have anything?
Sure. You know, one key challenge I perceive as gender-specific is which are very male-dominated. So let me give you an example. So for example, we recruited for many senior customer experience and customer service positions, so something like director of customer service. And this is a quite good area in that sense that you have male-female ratios up to team lead level, which is quite good, 50-50 around. And then essentially, if you put out a position, you get 20 applications and 18 are men. So it's really, and that maybe is a good discussion as well, how can we encourage more women to lean in, put the head in the ring, and, you know, apply? Because that's when I think this from a perspective of a member of a recruiting team, it's absolutely of essence to get a good balanced recruiting pipeline. Otherwise, it's very difficult, obviously, to select more women. Yeah, so that's recruiting pipeline is, I think, a topic we can talk about.
Yeah. And how do you see that at Vantik or throughout your career as well? Getting more female leaders in your leadership teams as well.
That's indeed a huge problem. I totally see also his point, and it's a really, really valid point. I mean, it's connected to a lot of things from my point of view. First of all, it's of course because most females tend to be a little bit less self-confident than males are, so they also apply for lower positions. I also had quite frequently that I had actually applications for positions they are overqualified for. The other thing is as well, and what I also see quite frequently is what Antonia mentioned before, with this kind of hiring when it comes to, yeah, you might get pregnant in future. I mean, I saw it live several times back at my time with corporates. Had many friends of mine who actually faced the challenge of going even to a team level, what you mentioned before, because already there you have the huge gap in corporates. And this just move forward. Those people will not apply for a team level position at other company afterwards because they already experience a major drawback. And this is also what I can say from my experience. Back in Amsterdam, for example, I received under the first 100 applications, I had one female application, one. I know we are very tech savvy and very tech heavy in general, but anyway, also for the marketing, for the business side of the application, we nearly received nothing. And that's hard to challenge then. And this is why you actively need to start looking for it to change that as well.
Yeah. How is that going at Penta as well? How do you get more people in the pipeline early on? More female.
Yeah, first of all, hello to everyone.
Hello.
Sorry for my technical troubles, even though working in Fintech. Didn't manage to get my laptop up and running because the cable was actually not working. But anyways, I'm here. Back to topic. Yeah, my name is Jessica. I'm co-founder of Penta, a challenger bank for SMEs. We're working together with Solaris. And specifically on this topic, I absolutely agree. It is super difficult to get female applications in on the top line of the funnel. We, for example, at the moment are looking for a new COO, especially for the high like C-level positions, right? It's super difficult. However, at the same time, I have to say that at the moment, it's strangely enough, due to COVID, maybe more applications would come in, but I feel still for like very specific and high profile positions, we always need to go out there and like also do active sourcing, right? So the COO applications that we got in were like overwhelming. And I think there was maybe this syndrome of kind of over, predicting their own capabilities in a sense. And I don't want to judge anyone, there were a lot of men that kind of over-predicted going the step to the COO, which is also daring and being bold, right? So it's good on the one hand, but there were almost no female candidates. So what we're doing now is really active sourcing, and maybe because I'm also the only female member of the executive team, I also said, like, for me, it's a super high priority to get female candidates in, to ideally, obviously, have another like female candidate on this position. But in the end, I'm always seeing also like the business side of it, right? Like in the end, the best person for this job, no matter of color, gender, and anything else, should join the team.
How far can you go with positive discrimination here as well in terms of gender then? So you then, you give females a preference, right, in your recruiting process?
At the moment, especially for certain positions, yes. But still, there's, like you said, there's at some point also, let's see, right? We want to be positive. So let's try to bring it, because I also think there are values to this, like having a mixed team in this like management board that are what you would maybe understand from the purely like paper application of the candidate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And Moonfare, how is that going, Antonia?
I mean, same as everyone here. We were in exactly the same situation. Lots of applications, very good candidates, but 80-85% are male. So one thing, and we actually for a time we only considered male application if we had at least one or the equivalent or twice as much in terms of female applicants. That just wasn't viable. The volumes were just ridiculous. So we kind of flipped the problem on its head, and we started asking ourselves, well, if I'm a female candidate, what would make me want to work at Moonfare? What is it that Moonfare does? What is it that Moonfare offers that is attractive for me as a female? We're only talking about gender here, but I agree with Jessica that actually, all dimensions of diversity should be considered. So, things like, if you're the candidate, and ask yourself uncomfortable questions like, has the executive team gone through any sort of anti-bias training? Is there a diversity and inclusion committee, that is not HR or people and culture, but actually like tackles these issues specifically and then holds the leadership team accountable for it? Is there a safe space to talk about this stuff? Do I see other women, like I said earlier, that represents that underrepresentation point that I can relate to? So, other family-friendly policies in place, all these like things that you want to see from the candidate's perspective. And I think that's a good way to start to unearth things that you might not be doing and that you could be doing more of, and sort of start thinking creatively about what strategy you want to implement, because it's not just a hiring thing, really. If you're serious about it, it should be top priority, you know, for the executive team as well, and it should be part of the vision of the company.
Yeah, I think that is a really good point. It's not only on the getting people in the pipeline or getting more females in this example in the pipeline, but also changing sort of the mindset of your team and also the mindset of your company here. Are you actively having conversations about this gender-specific topic with your team as well, and get their opinions in there, and also start that conversation in the companies? Question to all. Delia at solarisBank, are you actively having conversations with your team members about this topic?
Yeah, we do. We also have a lot of active conversations about it in the leadership team in the first place, because I think the trouble that everyone here has is basically that for fintech, you basically have the double trouble of a very strong banking side plus a strong tech side, which is both not like, we're like just, you have less women overall, like fewer women overall, which makes it super hard. And for banks specifically, you also have like in the board, you have some requirements that you have banking experience and so on and so on. So you basically also have to fish in the same pool of talents that are already male dominated. So it's really hard, especially when we talk about recruitment, to get more in the pipeline. And also in terms of internally, I think this is why we also try to push our female talents inside the company the best we can, so that we really try to seek those who are great performers and really also can make a difference, and try to promote them as much as possible. And with that, basically, we have more and more conversations about the overall topic. We now have a Slack group that is really focusing, I think with already 30 people in it, that is really focusing on topics of diversity and how we can basically promote this more and also create a mindset shift basically inside the industry.
Yeah, and what does success look like then? Like, how do you measure if these conversations and these initiatives are successful? Maybe to stay on the example of solarisBank.
That's a really good question. I couldn't tell you any hard factors where I would say we can measure success on, or we do at least. I would have to think about this a bit more. What is most important for me personally in this discussion is just the awareness, because especially if we talk about unconscious bias and about the general situation that we have, I think it's just important that everyone is aware of that this is actually an issue, and then we can try to also work on it. Yeah.
Cool, that makes sense. And for you, Jessica, what would you say success looks like in this topic in Penta?
I think we are still at the stage somehow where we only like really slowly get up everything around like processes and like how do we structure hiring better. Now we just hit, I think, like 110 employees like this 1st of July now. So one would expect everything's already like very sorted and up and running, but you know, working in startups, sometimes processes take a bit longer. So I would say we are like slowly incorporating like trainings. How do you really like see, how are you aware of this like bias? And also, like I said, the active part of hiring. I think the second part that is very important for us in this new OPR period, which is starting in July, so for the next 3 months, is everything around employer branding. And I think this is like the full package, right? If you only see male people on maybe the website, which at the moment also is like basically 80% of our customers, then you also attract like a certain group. So everything like, who are we, who want we to be, and who want we be perceived as? I think this is the second important, very important topic. And how we would measure success. In the end, I think business success is like obviously like one factor. So if we as a company are successful, it means that the people that work in the company and like, you know, work well together. And then I mean, there is we also look at kind of the percentage rate, obviously, of women versus men. There's like, you know, these like easy factors. So I would say this is something we also actively manage. And yeah, I have to say, for example, in my team, like the second so like head of marketing, head of exactly customer relations, and also head of sales is actually female leadership position. So I'm quite lucky with that one. But this is not completely, and we also have a head of product, which is also female. So we are, I think, on the right track. But still, there's like much more to do.
Yeah, you mentioned a few things that are important, because I think success doesn't only have to be in the results, right? I think success is also what Delia said, in implementing these initiatives and starting this initiative. So that brings more awareness to the company. And then I think we can also in this talk not only bring awareness to these topics, but also really come with the solutions there. And it's interesting that you called luck in the end, that you're quite lucky having your female leaders in that place as well, because I think it's also hard work to bring the equality up and to get the right people in there. It's just the reality that it's not all equal, and we actually need to work to make it equal. So yeah, luck with hard work behind it as well. I think we drifted already a bit to the second discussion point here. So how can we get more gender equality in fintech sector, and why is that important? Maybe to go focus on the second part of this discussion point, why is it important to actually get more females in the leadership team? Because it seems like a given, right? We would love to hear your opinion here. Anna, you want to kick off?
Okay, sure. Why is it important for me? Because basically, and based on the experience in the past, it sometimes gets pretty single-minded and single-focused on discussions in general. I mean, it's not only about gender, it's generally about diversity. And this is something I experienced quite a lot in the past, because certain kind of groups, and I mean, group behaviors and biases comes in any time, always lead to the same direction. And if you just want to oppose them, it's already pretty hard. This is also why, coming back to this entire how do we change it, and also, for example, Life's question on the side there, for me, it's really about kicking off this process as early as possible. Back at my time at university, I already started to get in very much more of the females into the physics university, into the institute, to see them, the laboratories, etc. Because also there you can see you have way fewer females coming around. And this is something which just flow through the entire process afterwards, which we cannot change on a short term, because as Delia mentioned before, if we don't get to work on these biases, we won't be able to change it. Because it just actually, I have a very good example on what happened once, because I actually had one internship, and she joined me for an investor meeting. It was about raising new money. And this is no joke, but at the end of the meeting, one of the potential investors came to me and tapped my head and was like, "Well done." And you're like, "Are you kidding me?" And she was like, "Is this happening to you more often, that somebody's treating you like a 5-year-old child?" And we, no, actually not so far, but she was so scared of this situation afterwards that she also discontinued of looking into this direction. And this is probably a very good example where we need to start working on, and because it's like the typical hen-egg problem. Before we won't change this one, not more females will come in, but we need more females coming in and taking the courage to change this one, because otherwise it will remain like this.
Yeah, I think that's two very good points, saying that we need diverse thinking in our teams, and if we don't start now with changing it around, we get stuck later as well. And crazy example that is. Antonia, why is it important to have more diverse leadership team?
I mean, obviously, agree with everything Anna said, but if we take one step back from that, you know, it's the obvious thing to do, the right thing to do. But I mean, there's countless studies that demonstrate the benefits of, you know, diverse teams on the bottom line. So ultimately, it's good for business, that it's what works. You know, more move away from group thinking, be more innovative, more creative, better decision making, less turnover, better end results, better financial performance. Yeah, that alone should be, you know, sufficient as an. I mean, no, the ethical aspect of it should be sufficient as an argument. But if it's not, for sure, just the fact that you're building a better, more sustainable and more successful business in the long term, there's no better argument really if you're serious about what you're doing.
Mission enough. Yeah, I agree. Does anybody of you have the experience also working in a totally non-diverse team and really see blockers, and even with examples there? Martin, maybe for you, did you work in a non-diverse team in terms of male-only leadership team, or?
Yeah, so let me quickly add to the question, why is this important? So the answer is really, really obvious. And I would really love to send some positive messages here. I had been in a lot of discussions in the last 10 years, be it in the consultancy world, be it as well in startup. And it's really, this message really resonated. As Antonio just said, it's diverse teams produce better results and are more fun to work. Really, this attitude I have, this is really positive, because I was involved in so much effort to boost the female participation rate. So for example, in 26, we really tried very hard and achieved to have a female CPO, a female CMO, and a chief HR officer, all on the senior leadership team. So, I would love to send as well some positive messages. The best time to apply in fintechs for females is now. And I agree to life, we should not only encourage females to apply for this potential position, but really to everybody. But if you are interested in fintech leadership position, it's a fantastic time to apply. And one more thing to our discussion before, I had the experience several times. Imagine it's Sunday morning, you're sitting at the breakfast table and you see a job ad popping up, which isn't a job that excites you. Yeah, just name it. Head of product marketing leading a design team. And then there are 10 bullets which state the requirements of the job. And 4 bullets you are sure you can tick off. 6 you're unsure. You can construct a story, but you're unsure. Should you apply? And the answer is, for me, so clear, definitely. So everybody who listens to this, if you have a position which excites you and you're not sure if you meet the bar, please apply. The time has never been better, because you cannot lose. That's really important. If you apply, you broaden your network, you broaden your skills. You can only win if you apply. And that's really, I think we should really put this message so clear. The best time for females to apply for leadership positions in fintechs is now.
Yeah, clear statement, your message.
I love the positive spin of this. I think it's absolutely true. And I would even say it's not only fintechs. I think what we currently see is also more females at founding companies, right? This is also it's not only for a woman but also for men. Such a huge step. You really have to be brave. You have to try it out. You have to jump into the unknown. And I think the more people do it, the more they actually see that it can work out. And I think we really have to somehow take out this big monster of fintech that it's so scary, right? In the end, it's actually such a fun environment to be in. And we also have, at least in our company, a lot of people from completely different areas jumping into fintech, because you bring in a different mindset, background from maybe e-commerce that is super helpful. So I think this idea of the big banks and everything is regulated and it's super dry, it's absolutely over. I mean, look at all the challenger banks out there and all the cool payment providers. I think there's so much amazing things you can do now. It shouldn't be scary anymore.
How can we make it not scary then? How can you achieve?
I personally think visibility is still super important. So basically having those rounds here, all of us being promoted inside the company and outside, and basically showing that there is no mystery behind it. And I also agree with basically what has been said before. I think especially in fintech, sometimes we're still in the mindset of everyone has to still have some kind of banking background. But personally, I think we have to start looking a bit beyond, going out of our comfort zone, and not, again, fishing in the same pool of talents that we always had that was already male dominated, but also looking into, as Jessica said, e-commerce and so on, to find good people there that also bring something more to the table and like an outside view. And it might have also the advantage that it's not so much like banking, 90% male, 10% female.
Yeah, not looking too much at people's background. I think that's a really good solution. Yeah, really being open-minded on that.
Can I add
cool. Yeah, please.
So that's a super good point, Dalia. So we made the experience banking expertise in fintechs is partly in the way. Yeah. So essentially, if you apply and you have long experience in banking, that partly is not necessarily a success factor of being successful in fintechs. Yeah. So really to rethink the industry from the ground up, exactly what Dalia just said. So it's obviously helpful if you work 2 years somewhere in close to financial space, but it's absolutely not necessary to have a 10-year banking background. It's more, it can be even in the way of your success.
Yeah, cool. I want to address attendees who really ask some questions as well that might come up throughout this discussion to the speakers, because we'll in the end go into the Q&A. I think we discussed quite some solutions here, and I feel quite pumped as well with the positivity and the solution-oriented conversation that we're currently having. I actually spoke with Delia before this webinar, and we discussed also the shortage of role models in the industry. Maybe there's not so many female role models in your company that you can follow in order to follow that path as well. So I want to ask to all the speakers, what is a role model for you in the industry, or who is a role model for you in the industry, and why? And I start with yourself.
This is a really tough question, because actually in the past it was really, really tough. I mean, 15 years back when I founded the first company in the gaming sector, there was basically no female around. Currently there's one, which I'm really looking up to, because she was also for a longer time my mentor. She's living in the US. She's Laura Klein, and she is kind of the first woman over there who really made it through in product management for tech companies there. And I learned quite a lot from her. But to be very fair, she's one of the very few over there as well. And here in Germany, it's even less. I mean, not only because we are a little bit behind in terms of tech companies in general, but also in this general diversity thing. So when looking back in all the other companies, there were basically non-potential role models at all, because simply there was no management team. There was hardly a team lead which was female. And this was really, really tough. And I'm really also talking like Bayer, Covestro, all this time as well. Of course, you have team leads, but they are so separated and so rarely that you cannot work close with them, where you can really make a connection, where you say, this is the person I look up to, this is really cool what she is doing. It's super, super rare. And especially this is an opportunity we have in a startup situation when new young females come in, to really take them by the hand and really work closely together with them to give them this kind of mentorship. Because what I saw that I'm now jumping a little bit, because what I see Paul asking over there in the chat is like, do you have specific channels for female sourcing, or do you get a lot of referrals? He's super right with this question, because actually I'm getting a lot of referrals for males, but I'm getting hardly any referrals for females. To be very precise, I haven't received a single one for a female this year so far. And this is also connected to this situation, that you don't have this kind of senior leadership person you can look up to. Also, all of my mentors in Germany, they've all been male in the past, because simply there was no opportunity to that. And this is something we need to change now, because based on this, you come into more networks, you come into all those different communities where also this leadership positions will be given. And you also simply get better access to everything, starting really from simple tools, processes up to networks and all those job offers. And this is what we heavily need to work on. I know I jumped a little bit off topic, but
no, I think it's on topic. And I think we can, as speakers here, all serve as role models in the industry as well. And I think one thing you mentioned here is mentoring. Mentoring people around you is already help. And maybe with the speakers and the attendees of this event combined, we can make it a mission to refer a good female into a role that we see coming by as well. Because I think it starts with those little changes and start doing the things that we're saying and talking about. So nice example, Anna. Antonia, for you, who is a role model in the fintech industry?
Well, first I want to say that Anna's making a really good point that I think in continental Europe specifically, we're really behind the curve. So it's exciting to be part of this conversation, that because there's so much to do and so many things to work on and to change. But it's true that when you look around, you don't really see. I mean, I'm from France originally. It's a very similar situation to Germany. It's very hard to see those sort of inspiring role models that are not white male. The UK, I think, is a little bit more advanced. I was in the UK before. I was based in the UK before, and I think there are a few steps ahead. But for me, I really somebody I really admire and look up to is Sally Krawcheck, so the co-founder and CEO of Ellevest in the US. So they're only only US based. Obviously, love the idea of making investment accessible to everyone. She's focusing specifically on women. She was she was heading the whole wealth management and investments division at Bank of America. So she knows what she's talking about. But what I really like about what she does is how she runs her business. So she's a very strong advocate, a very strong voice about giving women access to wealth and access to investment, and increasing their capital. But she also does that in her company. So a lot of sort of initiatives and communication also around what the company does and what they stand for in terms of diversity, not just for women, but also all sorts of other aspects, people of color, etc. So I think that's really inspiring, and it ties into what I was saying earlier, when you actually make diversity part of your business strategy and vision, it trickles down. It trickles down to everything, and everybody's on board, and that just makes for a really stimulating environment and a business that does well.
Nice example. I'm gonna look her up after this talk.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
Cool. And then Jessica, who's for you role model in the industry?
Was probably like the people from the Fintech industry know this newsletter Finanzszene.de. It's unfortunately only in German, but they started, I think, like a couple of months ago, like a super interesting interview series with the idea to showcase more role models in fintech in Germany. And I have to say, like the interviews are actually amazing. There are a lot of like female leaders, founders, head ofs, C-levels that are doing like a fantastic job, and I love to read those. I'm really like positively surprised. So I think this is like the small things that probably like make a difference and really like creating these people. And and one of the questions there was also who's your role model, one of the last questions. And I think for me it's also mixed. Obviously I have like some role models that are male, some that are female. It's sometimes mixed together with a mentor. One that I mentioned in there is actually kind of like my first female mentor, because before I only had male. And she is like helping me a lot in terms of everything fintech related, but also how to be basically like attending like a board, like because we also go through all these like changes as a company, right? From this like 5 people in the beginning, now 110, now you have like serious investors on board. How do you best deal with them? There's a lot of like things that you can learn from somebody who's been there and exactly done this. So I think this is absolutely, and for a lot of other reasons, she's absolutely amazing. But I could have named probably like a couple of more that are doing really great things here in Germany.
Nice. I will afterwards also collect all the names of your role models, and then we can share that around to all attendees. And Delia, I know we started this conversation actually before before the webinar. Who did you mention as role model?
Yeah, so for me, it's not always about specific names, but rather like, who do I find inspiring? And I think for me, I find people inspiring that are very passionate about their job, that are authentic leaders. Specifically in the fintech industry, I think it's Miriam Wohlfahrt. So I also mentioned her as one of my role models in the series that Jessica just mentioned. And also Georgina, the CPO of N26. She's just like super approachable and super nice, so knowledgeable. Like she's really awesome. And overall, and I think this is also what we talked about before, yes, there are super few women, unfortunately, as leaders in the fintech industry. And therefore, I think, or for me, it was always helpful to also like look around, like not only look at leaders, like female leaders that you have in the fintech industry, but also look at your colleagues, look at your team. There are so many inspiring women and people in there that like, yeah, that can also like give you the inspiration that you're looking for and be a role model, even though they're not on the same level or on a higher level. I don't think this is always necessary.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point and very necessary also to be again open-minded on that and get your inspiration from different kinds of directions. Martin, who's a role model for you in the industry?
So I would add what Delia just said. Georgina Smallwood, for CPO of N26, is really an outstanding woman in all aspects. And I would add Noor van Boven, the Chief People Officer of N26, as well. Really fantastic role model, I think, to look to. Isabel, would you allow me to add possibly one more solution to our discussion?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Your time to talk.
So one more topic which I would really love to get some input from you is family-friendly startups. I believe we need to fight together to make startups, fintechs in particular, more family-friendly. So a little example, I have two small children. My smallest was 6 months a couple of years ago. And I had a discussion with my boss, which went in the direction, hey, look, I'm responsible for the operations. You can rely on me. Whatever it takes, I will make operations successful. So you can call me at night, you can call me the holidays, whatever it takes. But I would love to have 4 more weeks of unpaid holidays for my family, right? Answer, look, Martin, in a fintech which runs from funding round to funding round, that's totally impossible. But we can always talk about removing you from the C-level into a lower position. Yeah, and I would love to, have a joint vision about super successful fintechs and which are family friendly. And for me, there are a couple of aspects to this. First, a very strong output, not input orientation, so that we really measure ourselves on the results we create and not the time we spend in offices, network events, or virtual conference. So that's one. And the second is, I always discuss with my teams a deal of mutual flexibility. So in the sense, if you need time for your family, we will organize around it. So if your child is ill, take the day off. If you need 2 more holidays, no problem. But if the company is in need, if the tide is rising, we need you in the trenches fighting the water with us, right? So it's a mutual flexibility based on your needs. And then maybe SAP is a great example, I think, for diversity and inclusion. So we might start to experiment with something like part-time leadership positions. So it probably will not fully work on a very part-time basis, but you can discuss possibly something around, having more unpaid holidays, being a bit more flexible over the year with time. Yeah, so the whole topic about family friendliness, I think, is super important, and it's clearly a topic not only for women, it's a topic for all parents.
Nice. Yeah, I love the solutions you're giving as well. Does anybody want to add a solution before we go to the Q&A? One that's common.
I want to add something really quickly. I'm really glad Martin is here, because I think a lot of the time, when we're in these environments where you're looking at a board or executive committee that is entirely male, finding like that one ally who is part of the majority can make all the difference, because they understand, if they take the topic on board, they understand the importance of it. They really believe in it, that they're just more likely to be listened to others that are like them. And I think, obviously men need to be part of this conversation, because this is, what we're talking about is a more equal work environment for everybody. So just finding that ally, that advocate that can help amplify your voice, I think, is also something worth exploring and pursuing.
Yeah, totally agree. Cool, thank you so much, Martin, for raising this topic also close to the end, and Antonia for adding to it. I want to leave the last 7 minutes to the Q&A of the audience, and start with the first question posted by Anna. So her question is, what are your predictions for the future? When do you think we will reach the point when we won't have to think about gender diversity in the workplace, because it will simply be natural? Very interesting question. Anybody has a reply to that?
I can say something. I wish it would be already there today, honestly. Like, I think all of us are sometimes a bit annoyed to keep on talking about the same topic, right? But it's so important, because what Delia said, we have to create awareness, and that's why we're doing it. And we believe in the results that it brings, right? So I think we're still at the phase where you have to do basically double the effort and like invest into it, that we get to the point. And I think if we keep on doing this, we will get there. Because honestly, there's so much changing. I mean, also now in terms of Corona, like the fact that companies get more flexible with their home office and remote work. We get more innovative, we get more digital, and there's only one way, and that's going into the future. And they're like not including 50% of the population into innovation. The future is like nonsense, right? So this has to happen, but I still believe we have to actively work on it.
Is this point is it ever going to be reached? Is it, say, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, or not possible? Jessica, what do you think?
I would be like class go now. I don't know.
Right.
Everybody else has.
Anna, would you want to add to that?
Yeah, probably I'm a little bit more pessimistic about this terms, because I won't think that we will be there independently of the effort we put in within the next 10 or 20 years. I mean, because as mentioned before, it's just so incorporated in the mindsets and in the general culture. I mean, it's not about gender diversity, it's about diversity in general. And we're talking about, when do we reach this? At a point in time in a country where still the chancellor said no to gay rights just last year. So it will be probably very undisputable not happen in the next couple of years, because they took 50 years just to get the same rights. And now we're not talking about just public rights, we're talking about biases which happen unconsciously, which need to fade out slowly out of the minds, out of the generations. So even if our generation is already better than when before, it just slowly fades out. So the best we can do is to push it as far as we can, but I won't see it coming until the end of my career. I know I'm pessimistic, sorry for that, but yeah.
Antonia, do you share that with Anna?
Yeah, I don't want to be a negative Nancy either, but I to some extent, yes, I do. It's it's very much on point. We're talking about a lot of behaviors that are completely unconscious, and just acknowledging those, and, all of the conversation that's been happening recently, also in the US, and hashtag Black Lives Matter. A lot of people coming to terms with the fact that, yes, I might have had behaviors that are perceived as racist, and it's the same for sexism. So it takes a while to just talk about it, educate, and then ultimately make a change. But I 100% believe we're on the right path. I mean, this webinar is the perfect illustration of it. And, which, like Jessica said, we need to keep talking about it relentlessly.
Yeah. Cool. And then a follow-up question on that topic actually is, do you believe that positive discrimination, in example given quotas, is necessary to solve that problem? I know we touched upon it a bit in the beginning of the webinar, but Delia, do you think positive discrimination is going to solve it?
Honestly, this is such a hard question, and I feel like I change my mind about it every year, back and forth.
Why?
Because there are so many points to consider and so many pros and cons also. Like if we talk about jumping back to the first question, when do we expect like the mindset shift to happen? Honestly, I think if we would now start with positive discrimination for a couple of years and really be hardcore about it, we would at least get there faster. But it would also be like the path of, yeah, the harder path, let's say. If we continue without it, I think it would just take like more time, because you really have to invest so much in like changing the mindset of people. And this is so hard that I think sometimes it can also be very helpful to just force them to see that having 50-50 gender equality or diversity in terms of whatever kind of background or sexuality or color or whatever does make things better. So therefore, I'm always super in between right now. Honestly, I'm even a bit more towards, yes, positive discrimination would help our situation right now.
Yeah, and for you, Jessica?
Yeah, super similar to what Adelia said. I'm also like switching to both, and I think it's this bias you probably have as a business owner yourself, right? You want to have best talents and you want to like develop further. So if at the moment, if I would have this like rule, you can only hire 50-50, I would be like, oh no, does this like harm us basically in the short run personally? But I actually think drastic measures will help like accelerate this topic and like improve this. So maybe taking into account what negative or what are the costs of this these hard measures, and then deliberately deciding to go for it and do it for like a certain period of time. Maybe this is it. And I mean, there are other countries that are already doing it, right, and not that unsuccessful. And I mean, this also has happened in other countries and times, not in relation to gender, but also in relation to color, race, etc. Right? It always has like positive and negative effects, so there's not like a clear yes or no, but it helps probably as an initiative to move the needle.
Cool. Martin, what is your take on this?
Yes, it's a difficult question. So first, I respect everyone who believes in positive discriminations. There are some positive aspects to this. I believe positive discrimination is as well discrimination. And I very much believe in a truly equal working environment where promotions, where hiring decisions are not based on your skin color, sexual orientation, and gender. So I really would love us to work and fight for this really truly equal working environment without positive discrimination. One important aspect of that discussion, I would as well love to differentiate between a systemic parity and an individual parity. So I agree to all what you said before, in the sense it might be difficult to get very fast to 50-50 leadership positions, but I believe partly we're already there on an individual basis. So essentially, if you're a woman, you throw your head in the ring. I very much believe there are already now very good opportunities to advance and to get in leadership positions in fintechs.
Nice, thank you. I think, the whole summary of this event is that we're fighting on a lot of different fronts at the same time. So not only getting the female leaders to step up and go for those positions, or sourcing them through active sourcing, but really changing the mindset of the human beings in all the companies that we work in as well. And I think we heard some great examples in this webinar on how to overcome or how to accelerate the rise of female leadership within fintech and actually beyond fintech as well. And we're going to summarize the main outcomes as well, what every speaker said, and we'll post that tomorrow on our blog. But for now, I want to thank all the attendees for attending the webinar, and to also for the nice questions that you posted here. I know there's one question that we didn't answer, so we'll follow up with that after the webinar to come with an answer there. And I want to thank all speakers for joining this discussion and really like showing the inside of their company, but also the inside of their own career in order to bring this topic to awareness of the people attending the event. And it definitely didn't start or end with this webinar alone. We're going to have loads of more discussions on this, loads of more solutions towards this topic. But thank you so much for joining tonight. For next week, we actually have a webinar on how to build an inclusive culture in your company as well. So that is a relevant topic related to this one. So make sure to join that webinar as well. And then, I'm going to leave it to that and wish everybody a great night. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.